All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask everybody to take their seats because the Honorable Mayor Smith has noted that it is 1 o'clock, and in fashionable time, we're going to call this meeting to order. It is 1 o'clock. It is the pre-described time it is a special time and date for our meetings, so usually transpire at 9 a.m. on Friday mornings, but we are holding it today, so we thank you for joining us. It is June 20th at 1 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County. And at that time, Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Ron Smith.
Here.
Bon Hartung.
Here.
Bob Lucy.
Here.
Lee Gibson.
Here.
Dale Ferguson.
Here.
Cole Mortensen.
Here.
Let the record show that Oscar
To the bathroom.
Delgado, sorry, and Neoma Jordan are not in attendance.
Thank you. All right, looks like we have a quorum. At this time, I would ask that, Brandon Lewis, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. It's all right. I don't want to catch you off guard.
Please join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do it all the time.
Look, we understand it's always difficult to have these meetings after lunch. It gets us a little slower. We're not exactly as functional as we are at 9 a.m. So bear with us today. All right. So Commissioner Jordan is now here, Vice Chair. So with that, I would ask that we have Mr. Michael Moreno come, or who's going to do the special recognition? Mr. Moreno, or are you going to do it? Oh, okay. Mr. Gibson, special recognitions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Today, we are going to recognize the RTC Director of Public Transportation, David Jickling. David, I think at the close of business on June 28th, will complete his career at the RTC. And will go into retirement. Now, I think it's interesting, and I'm going to probably say some things I shouldn't say, but I just love his hair. I personally think he's out interviewing for jobs.
Right. Clean cut.
All nice and clean cut after 33 years of long hair. Everyone missed earlier the little handoff, trade-off between David and Mr. Ferguson on the hairstyling.
I didn't even realize he had eyes.
Yeah. I think we have a little video. It's a little bit long, but
That is fantastic, folks. They went into the depths to get that. Men at work.
Did I say 33 years? Yeah, oh no, because you bought 5. Anyway, I will personally miss David very much. And I think I speak for the staff when I say that as well. He's been a great inspiration. He has been, he is one of those persons who comes into my office and says, you know, Lee, you're just full of it today. And he really brings a critical mind, a Socratic approach, and we're going to miss that in the RTC. I also want to really also highlight, when I first started at the RTC, David was the one who came to me with the idea of the electric bus program through what was called the Transportation Investments for Greenhouse Gas Emission Reduction. And it was through that program that we started the Proterra effort and began building a substantial proportion of our fleet to be electric so that we could save fuel tax dollars. When I first got here, one of the challenges we had financially was we were cutting service because fuel prices were going out the ceiling and we couldn't afford to put fuel in the buses and people couldn't afford to put fuel in the cars and we were leaving people behind at bus stops because of that. So David's commitment to sustainability, David's critical thinking skills are all going to be missed at the RTC, but I know, having talked to David, he's going to be quite happy in his new role as retiree gardener, bird watcher, environmentalist, and all those other things. So,
Well, Dave, on behalf of, speaking from this commissioner's standpoint, through the years that I've gotten to serve next to you and serve with you, and through the multitude of hairstyles and multitude of friendly, the one consistent that there has always been there is the gleaming, beautiful personality and friendly smile you always on your face. And I mean, you are just been a wonderful individual to work with and have brought so much energy to public transit and so much compassion to those that need it. And you've been just a wonderful inspiration to many, many people within our organization. But I wish you the best, and what a wonderful year of service. I mean, many years of service that you've had with RTC, and your dedication to transit has been just unsurpassed by very few. So congratulations and happy retirement. Any other comments from any of the board members? I know Mayor.
Don't mind. David, I'm going to miss your hair most of all. I don't know if people know this, but his hair was the only certified safety helmet in the state of Nevada, so he could ride a motorcycle with just his hair. But your smile, every time that I see you, even when we talk politics, because I know we're simpatico on politics, that's the only time you'd ever walk away from me is when we were having a conversation. But I'm gonna miss you, David. I think you were a great addition to this organization, always have been. And I've been here for 13 years now, or 12 years, I think. So good luck in retirement. You'll do well in retirement. I think you got a haircut because you're getting another job. No? Thanks, David. Thanks for all those years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, I mean, what can I say? We've known each other for many years. I've tried to wrangle a route out into Spanish Springs well before I was elected, and we've been interacting for, gosh, I don't know how many. It's been a bunch. I appreciate all the things that you've done for the agency. My hope is that in retirement, your hobby will be riding buses. So we'll look for you on the various routes and hope for your feedback. I did not realize that you're the one who wanted to bring Proterra and came up with that idea. It's stellar. We're a leader in the nation, certainly so, and that doesn't surprise me though. Washoe County has so many innovative individuals. I mean, we just seem to be a magnet for innovation, and this is just one more feather in our cap, and I really appreciate your proactiveness. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on reaching retirement. I don't think I'm going to. I just don't see it in my cards. So.
Thank you very much. I will keep it brief. you know, I've always enjoyed working with you as well. Always a pleasure, always a smile on your face. You are the epitome of a public servant. You're it. Be proud. You fought professionally and eloquently and but forcefully for your riders and for the environment. Thank you for that.
All right, so, Oscar? Commissioner, I should say, Delgado.
Hello, yeah, and I feel bad because we haven't had a chance to work together, and now I feel like I'm being left out, so it's not fair, it's not fair. But you're definitely, your legacy and your personality transcends not RTC, but also at the city of Reno, so we have the city of Reno and my constituents and everyone else appreciate your insight, your innovation, your positive, progressive thoughts on the long-term transportation systems that we have, and we have some really huge shoes to fill, but I know we have some great staff as well, but thank you for starting that and for at least creating the vehicle for us to get to another place. So thank you again for your service.
Well, big round of applause for Dave and the many years of service. And if you will belabor us just for 1 minute and come up here and take a picture for us so that we can add to the portfolio of beautiful pictures that you have.
Well, while everyone's getting organized, I will note that there will be a celebration of David's career next Friday, the 28th. At what time do we start? 6? 5? 5 o'clock at the Brasserie St. James. There's a little courtyard, I believe, in the back. So hopefully everyone will show up. Don't shake. You'll get sick. Go stand next to Oscar, y'all are fellow Wolverines.
Yeah, there you go. All right, come here, get over here. Get in the center.
Come on, don't sit down.
There you go.
All right, where's Michael? There's
Right there.
I'm the short guy here.
This is his first time with an iPhone, Mike.
I think he's got it reversed. He's taking this.
Dang it.
Look at me, I'm
This is
amazing.
a really good one, you guys. You're gonna love this.
Let's rock and roll.
All right. Enough of the wonderful pleasantries. We got some business to do here, folks. It is a working day, Dave Jickling. Can't be all Dave Jickling all the time. All right, at this time, I am looking for an approval of the agenda as posted. Can I looking for a motion? I have a motion from Vice Chair Jordan, second from Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. We are on to item 2, public comment. At this time, public comment would be for any of those individuals who want to speak about items on or off the agenda. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. I do not have any comment cards signed in. If there's anybody wishing to speak, this would be your opportunity. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the board. I am on to item 2.2, to accept a monthly summary report for the Technical Citizens Multimodal and Regional Road Impact Fee Advisory Committees. Looking for a motion.
Second?
I have a motion from Mayor Smith, second from Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item 3, Mr. Director, we are on to item 3.
Mr. Chairman, item 3 are the consent items. These are considered routine items with respect to the conduct of the business of the RTC. I will note there are a number of contracts on here. That's because we are entering the new fiscal year beginning July 1. So everybody, a lot of our vendors are getting their contracts restarted. We also have some interagency agreements here with respect to the trip reduction program with NDOT. Everything in here, and the interlocal cooperative agreements with the entities. Staff recommends approval of the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gibson. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anybody wishes to pull or have any further discussion on? If not, I would be willing to entertain a motion at this time.
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Mayor Smith. Second from Vice Chair Jarden. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We are on to item 4, Director's Report. We are moving snappily through here. I'm looking good, people. This is fantastic. This is the kind of way meetings should be run. Yeah, David's looking to get to retirement quickly. All right, we're on to item 4, Director's Reports. Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, a little project started this week. I appreciate
have noticed.
I appreciate the chuckles from the City of Reno members. We started construction on Virginia Street this week, and I think, we got Jeff's pictures later on in the agenda. I think we got a couple for right here. No? So anyway, it's underway, and it's started Monday. Traffic control went into place. I guess Tuesday afternoon, things got kind of exciting, and Wednesday, things got exciting. I took a drive through there this morning and saw a lot of dirt. I mean, dirt that's the surface of the earth. So it was good. We all smile at the RTC about construction. We did open a project information office just north of the Z-Bar on Virginia Street. Both RTC and SNC staff will be in there. On Tuesday, June 25th, we're going to host an open house and ice cream social. Is that right, Michael? A ice cream social? And then on Friday, June 28th, a week from tomorrow, we're having a celebration to mark the start of the Virginia Street project transformation and construction event at the South Virginia Plaza located on Virginia Street. That's the Sports West Retail Center. So we'll be there. The event will start at 11 a.m. We'll have Congressman Amodei there, who's been absolutely critical to helping us move the grant and our grant agreements through the administration. I was expecting FTA Region 9 Administrator Ray Tellis to attend. I did, however, hear from him this morning that because of the passing of a colleague of his in their San Francisco office, he will not be able to attend. We will also have Assemblywoman Sarah Peters. She will also will join and give us the opportunity to thank her for her successful leadership and stewardship. I think legislation is a combination of those two for Assembly Bill 270. That's our property disposition and microtransit bill that passed. The construction of the project is a major investment for the region. We want everyone to come out on the 28th and celebrate. Now, can we show the Washington Post? This is proof the Washington Post does not run fake news. Our project received national attention with a mention in the June 13th edition of the Washington Post. The article highlighted how Reno is winning big, and the improvements we're doing are helping to better connect our community. We got that? There it is. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Washington Post.
It was a good
So, okay. And so if that's not enough, the RTC, in partnership with the Nugget and all West Coach Lines, will be offering the public free bus shuttle service to the Star Spangled Sparks event on the 4th of July. The free shuttle service begins at 6 p.m. and goes until midnight. Now, the shuttle will run from 2 locations to RTC Centennial Plaza, the Reno Sparks Livestock Events Center on Wells Avenue, and the Sparks Christian Fellowship at 510 Green Bray Drive in Sparks. The service is part of our summer event transit campaign, Don't Drive, Arrive, encouraging event goers to take transit, bike, or walk to special events as an alternative to driving their car. This campaign was created in partnership with our friends at Sparks and the City of Reno. Information is available at the NuggetCasinoResort.com, RTC.com, and RTC social media channels. With that concludes the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I appreciate that. And we are on to are there any questions on the director's report or anything additional? We're on to item 4.2, our federal report.
Mr. Chairman, the federal report, I'll be quick about it. There are now a number of grants out open for competitive funding at the moment. We're looking at the Build Grant Program as a possible supplemental source of funds for the Pyramid Highway project. We're also looking at the Bus and Bus Facilities Program to fund some replacement buses for our bus fleet, as well as looking at, I'm waiting to hear on, again, another David Jickling Leadership Initiative. We're waiting to hear on our autonomous grant application pending at DOT. I guess it's safe to say this is the time of year when they come out with all those programs. I'm looking at Cole Mortensen, so hopefully we'll see how those go and we may have a successful competitive grant. The Congress is also looking at their fiscal year 2020 appropriations. They're considering a $323 billion fiscal year spending measure. We'll just, again, I take a somewhat cynical view. We'll wait and see what happens, because you never know what's going to happen in Washington. With that, that concludes my federal report.
All right. We also have, we're joined today by one of our members of our lobbying team from Washington, D.C., Mr. Dan Maurer. Mr. Maurer, do you have anything you'd like to add this morning that Mr. Gibson didn't cover in his federal report?
I would just add that.
You can't do it from the audience, sir. Yeah.
Dan Maurer, Porter Group, RTC's federal lobbyist. I would just add one thing to Mr. Gibson's statement on the transportation funding bill. The House version, the president has announced a veto threat against that legislation. So we may have to go back to the drawing board on that, but we do expect the House and the Senate to be able to pass something before the end of the fiscal year. But if passed holds, we may need a short-term continuing resolution, but we're working hard to get those numbers up at THUD and having some of the programs that are important to RTC fully funded. And that's it. But I'd take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Maurer. Are there any questions for Mr. Gibson or Mr. Maurer?
I have one for Mr. Gibson, but not Mr. Maurer.
All right. Commissioner Hartung. Thank you, Mr. Maurer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibson, do we have any timing on the Pyramid Highway? I get this question weekly. In terms of, and I know that the funding is still sort of suspect, but assuming that the funding would go through, do we have a time frame?
Mr. Malloy.
For the record, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Doug Malloy, RTC project manager for the Pyramid Highway, but also engineering manager. We have actually been working with NDOT. We've got a draft agreement in place. They're going to be, we're working collaboratively they're going to take the design on for the initial stages of the design for the project. So we'll be bringing an agreement forward to the board for approval here. We've got a couple back and forth with that, but that agreement is basically to reimburse them for the cost of the design. It's a good collaborative opportunity, and we're looking forward to that. Cole can probably speak a little bit more about that. We've been working with Cole and his staff, and we're looking forward to that. As far as the timing of it, I can't speak. We're going to work a schedule out with that agreement with some timelines for some deliverables. So we'll be working through that as well. But I see this, I believe they have the resources to be in this immediately, and we'll be working with them not only through the design process, but also on outreach efforts and other things. That'll be some great opportunities.
Okay, I'll wait. Cole, I'll wait because I know that you're going to do an NDOT monthly report, and so I'll tie that back in with several other things.
All right, so hold on one second.
Yeah.
So did that conclude everything for you, Mr. Gibson? Okay. So we're on to 4.3, which is NDOT's monthly report. So we are joined today by Mr. Cole Mortensen, Deputy Director of NDOT, here on behalf of Christina Swallow. So, Mr. Mortensen, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. For the record, I'm Cole Mortensen, soon to be Deputy Director. That won't happen until the first week of July.
Wishful thinking, right?
Unfortunately, we did have a conflict this afternoon. We had a ribbon cutting event for Kyle Canyon Interchange in Las Vegas, and I begged Christina to allow me to come to this meeting since I wasn't out in Las Vegas at the end of June. In case you didn't hear, Nevada recently ranked #1 in transportation system in the nation by the News and World Report. They looked at road and bridge quality, public transit usage, and average commute time in our state, and we ranked number 1. They also factored in energy reliability, internet access to rank Nevada 4th in overall infrastructure. We also have the nation's second best bridges. This year we came in close second to Texas based on the American Road and Transportation Builders Association analysis of the 2018 U.S. Department of Transportation's bridge inventory data. And when I say close, we came in just 0.1% below Texas. 1.4% of nearly 2,000 public bridges are structurally deficient compared to the 7.6% national average. It's important to note, though, when we say a bridge is structurally deficient, that doesn't mean that it's that it's unsafe or dangerous or in any imminent threat. Structurally deficient simply means the bridge becomes a priority for future work, and weight limits may be posted to restrict the weight of vehicles using them if we have to get to that point. So another announcement regarding the Spaghetti Bowl Express procurement. NDOT shortlisted 4 proposers last summer. Earlier this year, 1 proposer decided to withdraw from the procurement. 3 submitted proposals, however, 1 was deemed non-responsive, and the other 2 were not cost-effective. We are still in an active procurement, so I can't provide a lot of detail on that as it's still confidential. For the non-response proposal, we evaluated proposals for responsiveness in the beginning to the procurement documents and making sure that they actually meet all of the technical provisions. And the components of the non-responsive proposal contain deviations of deficiencies which failed to meet at least one of the pass-fail criteria. In this instance, the proposer could not easily clarify or change the error without substantially and/or materially changing their proposal or bid price. For the not cost-effective proposals, the project team will meet individually with the responsive proposers to understand the reasoning behind the cost increases, and then we will determine whether it will proceed with proposal revisions or continue down a different path. The Spaghetti Bowl Express is a high priority for us, and with the goal of improving safety, efficiency, and operations in and around the Reno Spaghetti Bowl as soon as possible. We are confident that we have options for a path moving forward for a project that will meet the operation and safety needs of the project.
Madam Vice Mayor, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. So what are the next steps? I mean, how long does the next step of procurement take?
At this point in time, we're doing our due diligence and investigating everything that we can about the reason for the higher prices and trying to get an understanding of if we can better structure the contract or the project itself to get a more cost-effective project out the door here as soon as possible. So as soon as we know that, we'll be able to put together a better schedule and let you guys know what that means to the overall schedule of the project.
So you're negotiating, I get it.
Yeah.
So a question I have, on the Spaghetti Bowl, the Express, where you're putting in the additional lane, and you're carving out part of Governor's Bowl,
Yes.
how much of that are you taking?
I would have to look at the plans as far as getting you a real solid square foot area of what
Okay,
we'd
maybe
be
we can talk
impacting
offline,
there.
because there's some interest in that,
Yeah,
in that piece
yeah,
of property. So,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Mortensen, I've asked Director Swallow, I'll sort of work backwards on my list. With respect to the Pyramid Highway, when we have a real need out north, and I don't know whether you've been out there, and that north would be north of Egyptian Sunset Springs, where the road narrows to 2 lanes. There's a huge amount of growth going on in north of those areas where Pyramid is 2 lanes, and of course, it was 65, and it actually still is 65 out north of that, and it's treacherous getting on and off that highway. So I'm hopeful that will be, the widening of that section of the road will be included at least to 4 lanes when we do the highway. And then I've had conversations with her, and she sent me an email that NDOT was doing a study at the corner of Pyramid and Calle de la Plata, because the lights just flash. They have the warning signals, and they just flash consistently. And apparently, we're trying to study to see if that works better. And it's the only place on the entire length of Pyramid Highway that just flashes continually as opposed to flashing when the signal is about to change. And so my beg literally is just make the highway consistent. If you're gonna flash all the time, make all of them flash all the time. Don't make that one signal flash consistently and not warn drivers that they're coming on a signal change. Just do the same at every intersection on Pyramid Highway. That's my beg, literally, is to just for consistency. Because it really confuses drivers, and here's the problem. I take the flack. They don't call anybody at NDOT. They call me, and then they call my staff, of course, my staff of engineers. They may even reach out to some folks at RTC, but for the most part, I get the calls.
Understood, and I can have my staff look into that. I know that there's a possible change in philosophy on those lights and as to whether or not the ones that light up as a warning encourage drivers to accelerate to get through the signal, potentially causing accidents, whereas if you keep them flashing constantly, drivers are alerted that there's a signal coming and have to behave appropriately. I'll talk to them about the consistency issue, though.
Yeah, I understand the methodology, I understand the need, but I'm not convinced that the warning, and we do, there's no question that if you think you can beat the signal, you know, you're gonna do that. I've seen it 100 times more. But I don't think it's a safety issue where people are trying to beat the signal. I don't see many people running those reds. I think it's because the time that the length of yellow is sufficient, because they know that drivers are passing through. So they've increased that yellow time so that it is still a safety, it's not a true safety concern. So it's something that we're dealing with. And then the last thing is the geometry of the intersection at Calle de la Plata and Pyramid. It needs to be addressed because we've eliminated one of the access easements. NDOT would not allow an access easement between Egyptian and Calle de la Plata. There was one on the map, and rightfully so. I get that. There's not another cut there, which is a good thing. But that said, the geometry needs to be revisited because that intersection really is going to have to handle a lot more traffic. And when I say the geometry, it's the depth of the turn queues. I asked for dual turn queues turning west onto West Calle de la Plata, and then some other geometry changes whereby turning south onto Pyramid from East Calle de la Plata, there is not enough room. We need to back that traffic up where the limit lines are, because if you're towing a trailer, you can't stay inside the lines. So the geometry really needs to be looked at, and it would. I'm happy if you've got some time. I'd love to take it out there.
Are you referring to the existing condition, or are you
Yes.
referring to the geometry of the project that I think we just awarded, or we will be awarding shortly to go out
Hopefully.
and fix that interchange?
Okay, I know that it's in the works, but I also know that there's an acceleration lane, and I don't know whether the change of the geometry is part of that acceleration lane coming from the north.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
look, if you want to spend some time out there, let me know. We'll take a thermos and go out there and watch traffic. One of my favorite things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Seeing no other questions from Mr. Mortensen, thank you. We appreciate your monthly report. We'll close 4.3 and move it on to item 5, which is 5.1, which is acknowledge the receipt of the Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit BRT Extension Monthly Progress Report. Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Wilbrecht.
Welcome, Jeff.
Jeff, how are you feeling?
Got a cough. 2 sick
It
kids.
sounds like that's kind of like the consistency.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting sick already.
Sorry. I'll stay away. I won't breathe at you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Jeff Wilbrecht, the project manager for the Virginia Street Project. So yeah, as Mr. Gibson said, we started construction this week. I have a kind of a quick presentation, lots of photos, the video from last time that should work this time, and some outreach updates. So again, utility project's complete. We're starting phase 2 reconstruction. So This week, we started down at the south end of the project with lowering all the utilities that are in the road so that when we come through, which actually started on Wednesday, we started removing all the asphalt. So the first kind of step of that is lowering all those manholes and those vaults and lids so that they're out of the way so that we can come by and bring the milling machine through to remove the asphalt to get down to that subgrade material, which is the kind of native underlying material that supports the road. Traffic control in this area is 1 lane southbound with the northbound detour going at Wells over to Vassar and then connecting back over to North Virginia, or sorry, to Virginia Street going northbound. Here's the video. I don't know if it's, yeah. So this is kind of the phasing map. So this shows the progress of the project as we're going to be phasing it. So that teal area, which includes the South Virginia part of the project between Plum Lane and Mount Rose, as well as all those side streets, are this first order of business. That's what we're currently working on, specifically the Mount Rose to Plum Lane, and then also St. Lawrence and Tahoe Street, which is one of the side streets. That's our first activity. Starting after the 4th of July weekend, we're going to start working on several other side streets, and then we're going to kind of start incrementally attacking those through this fall to then complete those so that when we go to that gray area, which is kind of this phase 2B, I guess you could kind of call it, between Mount Rose and Center Street, those side streets are done and we're working on that middle part of the project, continuing our way north. Oops, sorry. Oop. Am I going the right? Okay. So here's some just photos of the construction. So those upper photos, that's the milling operation. That's the removing of the asphalt pavement of the roadway down to that subgrade elevation. And we're really doing that between Mount Rose again and Plum Lane on the east side of the road. We're doing this section in halves. So we're gonna do this east half first, and then we're gonna flop to the west half. And the lower photos are of the St. Lawrence work. This is an area where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic and a lot of doors that are adjacent to sidewalk. And so this is actually on the north side of St. Lawrence where we've installed boardwalks to facilitate access for walkability and pedestrians accessing businesses in that area. And these boardwalks will be used kind of throughout the project. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis where, again, those businesses have doors at, right on the sidewalk so we can maintain access. And then we've been doing a ton of outreach. Michael Moreno and our team, we've been going everywhere to talk about the project as much as possible. We have weekly videos that Lauren's been putting together. We have our weekly stakeholder update. We have a project office that is open. That graphic on the bottom is kind of what it looks like. It's a Connex trailer kind of, but it's really actually really nice inside. There's AC, there's a plant, there's tables. That's the project office. It's right just north of the Z-Bar. You're welcome to come by. We'd love to have you. Then we've been doing a lot of marketing campaigns with, and the biggest one we're working on now is with Yelp, of creating videos of kind of an introduction to Midtown, mimicking the kind of California commercials of, California is XYZ, and so Midtown is, I don't know, Michael, if you want to comment on it, or Midtown's delicious, entertaining, relaxing, like all the, kind of inviting all the different elements and attributes of Midtown. So the dining options, the, nightlife options, the spas, all the things that Midtown has to offer, art, eclectic shopping. And so we've been just doing a lot of outreach. This morning we had a community meeting where we talked about the project with various community members. Go ahead.
When did the videos start coming out?
So we started the weekly videos soon after, actually, I think some of your comments. So they've been going on for a couple months now.
Michael Murno, RTC Public Affairs Manager. The weekly videos started in March, and the Yelp advertising campaign, we're in the process of putting those together, putting the storyboards together, identifying businesses who want to participate. So we anticipate those running probably around summertime, July, August.
So the videos are ongoing, though?
They will be ongoing, yes.
Can you send them to each of the board members individually as well?
Absolutely.
Because I know you post them to RTC and that sort of thing, but if we get them, then we can share them also.
Yeah, and those videos are posted on the project website. Usually we push them out on the stakeholder update every week, and of course on our social media pages as well.
Yes,
So-
maybe if you just ping us when you post them, and that way we can pull them and re-send them.
You got it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Jeff, you have one you're going to show today, is that right?
No, that was just that.
Oh, okay.
Traffic control coordination video. But to kind of talk about the Yelp videos that we're doing, we're going to do those like in 3 segments, kind of specific to those construction segments in Midtown. So kind of this first area construction that's going on right now, the middle area and then the north area between Center and Liberty. So they're going to be kind of playing throughout the entire project, but we're focusing our efforts on where we're actively impacting businesses. And that's kind of the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions and take any notes.
Any questions from the board members? I don't have any public comments signed in on this item, so appreciate the report. Thank you, Mr. Wilbert.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Keep plugging along, Mr. LeBlanc.
Motion.
All right.
We need a motion.
We don't need to. Do you want one?
It says for possible action.
Do you want? Okay. Looking for a motion to accept. So I got a motion from Madam Vice Chair, second from Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to item 6.1. Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, item 6.1 is to review Executive Director Lee Gibson, that's me, my performance as it pertains to the proper duties of the position and accomplishments of fiscal year 2019 goals and adjust compensation accordingly. Angela Reich, the Director of Administrative Services, will provide you a quick overview of this item, and then we will go through the matrix of assigned goals, objectives from last year, and talk about the completion of those and discuss other items as necessary. Angela?
Welcome, Ms. Reich. This is my favorite item of the year, let me just tell you. Every year I look forward. It's like Christmas in June. Go
Thank you.
ahead.
Chairman Lucy, members of commission, Angela Reich, Director of Administrative Services. And the item before you, as Lee just mentioned, is to review his performance. In addition to talking about his performance, you may also look at awarding any type of annual salary increase and a performance bonus between 0 and 5%. Any increase or bonus would be effective July 1st of 2019. And as Lee mentioned, we do this at the end or near the end of the fiscal year. And the item before you is to look at the duties and obligations of his position in addition to his performance of fiscal year 19 goals and objectives. And I just talked about adjusting the compensation at the discretion of the commission. The duties and obligations have been fulfilled. The items before you for RTC federal requirements include the Regional Transportation Plan, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, Unified Planning Work Program, and Annual Report. We've maintained legal and technical capacity to receive grants. Also approved all federal assurances and certifications in addition to DBE compliance. RTC motor fuel tax, there was an index adoption, capital improvement program, interlocal cooperative agreement, and approved program of projects. And finally, the administration and finance approved CAFR. We've approved the fiscal year 20 budget, accepted an annual audit, and we do continue to maintain and improve our personnel rules and management policies. And you've received an attachment, but before you are Mr. Gibson's goals and the status to date. And Mr. Gibson has completed all of the goals that were set forth for fiscal year 19. And Mr. Gibson, I don't know if you want to make any comments on your goals and the status?
I think there's a sound argument that fundamentally all of the goals in the three categories of agency, community partnership, goals and objectives, and then RTC board assigned goals were all met this year, kind of going maybe from RTC board assigned goals. As we all will recall, the question of microtransit legal authority was raised late as we were moving forward to do a demonstration project. We were able to get late into the legislative process and bring that as an amendment to our property disposition bill, and we were successfully able to get that done. I think with respect, going back to agency goals, Virginia Street, it was, again, Virginia Street as a goal of the agency was obvious, but I think it was vested in me to really shepherd the FTA process and follow that through. And that has been successfully done through the point of getting our allocation and getting everything lined up. All we have left to do is get the grant agreement signed. We did get the allocation and the letter of no prejudice. That's the legal instrument that allows us to begin construction and then be compensated with grant funds when the grant's finally executed. We did close out the Southeast Connector and Fourth Prater, but I think also looking forward, we were able to move quickly in developing the Lemon Drive RFP to look at the possible design build delivery method for the Lemon Drive widening, recognizing the importance of design build as a delivery mechanism to help deal with the other issues related to flooding hydrology issues out there in the North Valleys. One of the most important goals, I think, this year that I am pleased with is the selection of Keolis. Let's not beat around the bush. We've had real serious operating issues with our transit system. Our transit staff has worked diligently, but setting the tone from the beginning, I think we've really, I really strived for that RFP developed to be focused on excellence and quality and a new approach to dealing with employee relations. And I think that RFP has been, was crafted, developed, and the procurement process successfully concluded, and we'll be starting with Keolis on July 1. The ICAs have been updated, you know, so I think fundamentally all of the objectives have been completed. Funding for spaghetti bowls in place, working jointly with the autonomous technologies with the university. So I think I'd be happy to answer any questions with respect to any of the goals. I would point out for the commission, what we've traditionally done in the past is focus on the accomplishment of any goals, or my goals today. Then the next item, we're going to discuss agency goals. And then next month, I will look at the assessment you perform of how I achieved my goals, look at the agency goals, and then come back with personal goals for next month. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you,
or
Mr. Gibson.
You can ask, you can have Angela. Well, you have to go on.
You let her finish.
So my last slide, and this is an attachment. It's part of the attachment that you have before you. And this will just show you, since Mr. Gibson started here, and his increase and bonus history for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. All right, what I'll do is I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion. And so we'll start the conversation down at the end. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What did we rate the agency, 1.5?
Correct.
What does that equate to in a percentage?
The average increase for employees is 5.2%.
Oh, that's pretty hefty.
That was from last year. The 397 was 2018.
I didn't think it was that much.
For July 1st, the agency rating and our formula, so it's an average because it's a pay-for-performance program, but the average would be 5.2%.
Okay, let's take the executive branch. How much did they get? Were they at 5% too, as well?
I'd need to look
Who are we looking at?
to Ms.
Oh,
Haddock.
I didn't see you back there, Stephanie.
Stephanie Haddock, the Director of Finance. Actually, we're in that process right now. So what happens is, because it's a pay for performance, every director is in charge of giving raises to their staff. And they can't just give a uniform raise. It is based on their performance, individual performance. Lee is in charge of the director's raises, and he has not shared that with us either. So we're really in the process. So the total pool, the highest raise we can give is 5.2%. And then you can go anywhere as low as about, I think, 3% is at 0.6, because we have the same scale that you have for us, 0.6 to 1.5.
My only concern is, and I think Lee's doing a great job, is the last time we gave him a raise, we gave him
Bonus.
more vacation, we gave him a good bonus. And life insurance, is that what we gave you, Lee?
No, I waived life insurance.
Waive life insurance. So, I mean, we gave him quite a package last year, and I don't want it based on that. I want it based on what everybody else is doing. So for me, if we're not ready to know what the compensation is, then I would want to
Yeah,
put this
at this
off.
time, I can't tell you what the average compensation for the entire agency is.
Okay.
Just what our pool is.
Okay. Thank you.
Stephanie, would you go through the calculation of how the pool is established? Because I believe it involves a couple of indices related to
Yes.
wages in our industry, as well as a trigger mechanism when sales tax receipts exceed a certain percentage.
So it is a formulaic calculation. It's based on the Western States CPI index, an average of that, and that was at around 2.9% this year. And Simpson's, which is a market-based salary index, which was at 3%. You average those two together. Then we look at our sales tax, and based on how our sales tax is done, increase-wise is an added percentage. And so if it increased over 8%, we get to add 1% to that increase. So that's where we got to about 4%. Then you guys rated us 1.5, and that added on top of that, which came to 5.2%. So I can't, I can bring that back and show you the actual formula. But it is a formula based on indexing Western States CPI.
Thank you, Ms. Haddock.
Market
Hold on a
rates.
second. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. So, that's loud.
I know.
So when do we think the raise amounts will be completed?
Next week.
Oh, so that's in. So if we put this off, I mean, would just do an arrears to catch up, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, we can
Okay.
retroactive his increase.
So we
Okay.
could table this till next month.
Yeah, I think it's worthy of having a discussion about the goals now and the goals in the future, but maybe the actual raise amount, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, unless we just want to continue the whole item until after the other raises. Because I do agree, a reflection on your director is on your staff, and your staff and their raises is an important factor when we determine our directors'
Okay,
raise.
absolutely. Well, I'll have that ready for you in July.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question maybe for both of you. COLAs, do they
There,
exist?
we have no COLA.
There are no COLAs, okay.
But COLA's running,
It's
It's separate, it's a separate.
It's a part of the formula, if you
Okay.
will. It's not a COLA, it's the Western States.
What's the difference between Western states and the urban?
It's based on the Western States indexing,
Okay.
consumer price indexing. And so
Right.
it just takes into account the Western states, not the whole United States.
Right. It doesn't use
Because
the,
the East Coast would skew that, and then if you had the middle, which is
Right.
usually lower,
okay,
so.
okay.
All right, and it looks like, so based upon discussion here and deliberation with the board, at this point, what we'll do is we're going to just table this item until the July meeting, bring this back in July for further discussion in regards to compensation and how we will do that association at that time.
Okay, thank you. And so to be clear, so you would like just the average increase for RTC staff that will
Yes.
be effective
Staff
July
and then
1st?
the executive directors as
Yeah.
well.
yeah, staff and management. You can have an average, but we would like to know within, we'll call them segments, what those raises were. Maybe if you just bring back, you don't have to put names, but if you just bring back.
Can you clarify segments? Did you like
So
to have?
management and then non-union personnel.
Okay, so we don't have a union, I just want.
Well, I know, but the bus drivers are, so we kind of know what,
Oh, okay. I see
and when
what
we
you're
think of the RTC, we think of everybody.
Yeah,
So,
How about this, managerial and non-managerial,
there you go.
okay?
thank you.
Non-managerial, all right.
Okay.
So those two would be the stats we would be looking for.
The average.
Yeah. All right.
And I just would like to make one clarification. So last year, Mr. Gibson received a salary increase of 2.5% and a bonus. There was no other amendments to his contract
Right.
last year.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, that was based on what our agencies ended up giving our employees as well.
Right. Well, there was a lot of factors to that, and there were
Yeah.
some different underlying circumstances.
Yes.
So we'll have that discussion. So what we'll do is we'll just have that discussion in July. So we'll table this item until July, if that's acceptable with you, Mr. Director? Okay. All right. And let's sweat it out for another month, yeah. We're going to table everything until next month. I just think it's probably prudent to have that discussion all at the same time, and it's fresh in all of our minds. So we'll do it all at the same time. Yeah, you need to, well, first time you've been that's not the first time you've been an overachiever, Mr. Hartung. So what we'll do is we'll welcome, geez, he's threw me off here. Amy, how are you? Good to see your face.
Excuse me,
Amy,
Mr.
can you
Chair.
take us to item 6.2, which is the set agency performance goals?
Mr. Chair?
We need to make a motion, I think, to.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Is that what
Thank
you're
you.
saying?
Yes, we need a motion to postpone.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Hartung.
Second.
Second from Mr. Mayor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so we have tabled that item till July. All right, we are on to item 6.2. Mr. Gibson, you want to take us into that?
Mr. Chairman, item 6.2 is to set agency performance goals for fiscal year 2020. I've asked Amy to take the draft list of agency goals, put them in a PowerPoint, and I have trouble talking today. I'm going to let Amy talk.
Thank you, Amy Cummings, RTC. This is a draft list of goals for your consideration, and we welcome your input and updates to this. I'll just quickly summarize, and we can discuss any more in detail that you would like. Improving ADA accessibility, continuing our safety improvement programs, continuing to apply for grants, discretionary federal grants, making progress on our project construction, in particular Virginia Street and our pavement preservation and rehabilitation programs, working to improve our DBE outreach and participation, that's disadvantaged business enterprises. Continuing with our planning studies, we have 3 underway, and we're going to be starting the update to the regional transportation plan this fall. We'll also, as we've talked about, be implementing the new ride contract with Keolis. And along with that, we have the microtransit and the UPass implementation that will be coming up this year. Want to continue to work with the Business Improvement District and the downtown partners. Continue our sustainability planning, advance our process improvements. In particular, our focus this year is on procurement and contract management. We'll also be implementing, I would like to move forward with facilities improvements. We've been asked to look at finding a new location for the Meadowood Mall transfer facility, as well as working with Reno Land, Inc. on the Park Lane, the BRT station right next to the Park Lane site, as well as bus shelter improvements throughout the system and terminal way facility improvements. We'll be continuing our cost controls and continuing to improve our coordination with NDOT. We mentioned bus stop improvements here as part of our ADA program. We have a number of bus stops on NDOT facilities that we'll be wanting to improve ADA access for. So we're working closely with NDOT on those, as well as a trip reduction program, and of course the Spaghetti Bowl and other capital projects. So that is a brief overview, but of course we're welcome to talk about any of these in more detail or others that you would like us to include.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to keep these comments to the end, but on number 7, we talk about review and refine routes. It's time now that we put a route out to the Galleria and Spanish Springs. We're getting more and more calls, getting more and more population out there, and we keep putting it off. It has nothing to do with you, David, honestly. It's just time that we do it, and we're reducing costs on the bus maintenance and everything else, so there's a savings there. We need to start doing that. So that would be one of the goals, Mr. Lee, or Mr. Gibson, that I'd really like you to start working on.
All right. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I couldn't agree more. Amy, you know how long I've been asking for a route out into Spanish Springs just to broach the hill. I recognize some of the issues in terms of the ADA problems and extending that line, but it truly is time. And that route, and I know this may be a little difficult to envision, but that route can basically come from Bering down Sparks Boulevard, head east on Disc Drive, head north on Vista, past the DeVita, which could potentially be a great source of ridership, people trying to reach that DeVita. Turn back west on Los Altos, go down to Galleria Parkway, turn south again on Galleria, and then east again on Disk, back to Sparks Boulevard, and back to Bering. I mean, it's just it's a simple, could be an easy leg of a route, but it will broach the valley. I have a huge number of people that are also asking out farther north, seniors that are trying to reach our meal program that we provide now every day at the Lazy Five. So we really are having a lot more requests. It's time. Spanish Springs Valley is growing exponentially. It's really time to revisit the fact that we have no bus routes out there, none, zero. And there are very, very few places in the region that we have no bus routes at all. So I'm hopeful that that's one of them. That will be one of the goals. I'd also like to ask you just briefly about the Eagle Canyon Corridor Study. You knew I was going to hit this. Is that corridor study to put the road all the way through down La Posada out to the Tri-Center, or are we starting with just widening Eagle Canyon from neighborhood to West Calle de la Plata?
It's looking at, and we're just getting started. We're still in the procurement process now, so we'll be launching that here in the next couple of months.
Okay.
We're looking at improvements on the existing section of Eagle Canyon.
Yes.
West of Pyramid.
Good.
As well as different alignment options to connect over to the North Valleys.
Yeah.
This phase of the study is not looking at connecting east of Pyramid to I-80.
Okay, good.
That could be a future study.
That's going to have to be a future study. I mean, you know, we've got a few things in our own backyard that we really need to attend to right now. My fear is, and just understand, when Eagle Canyon was designed, there is not a lot of right-of-way. And so we're going to be bumping up against some houses if we're not careful on the size of that roadway and how we think that it would need to carry traffic. And then my last question is, where are we in terms of goals on signalization of certain key intersections? And I'll speak specifically again in Spanish Springs because it's a nasty area, and that is Egyptian/Sunset Springs and Pyramid.
Well, we can call out an additional goal here for implementation of our spot intersection improvements.
Okay.
That was included in the budget, so we can certainly add that here.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about just intersection improvements. I call that one out. I know there are many. That neighborhood is not the only one. I know that there are many, many needs. We have huge needs out on the Mount Rose Highway as well, and I'm sure Chair Lucy will talk about those things. So I'll save my comments. But there's a bunch, and these come back to safety. So.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. I think one of the most important things that we can do in this next year is with the bus driver provider being switched over to Keolis, is keeping a very close eye on that performance and not waiting 3 months or 6 months for a report back from them, but us getting a report on a weekly basis about their performance, their on time, their route cancellations. Those are a big issue. I've been pinged a number of times in the last month about routes being delayed or canceled because of driver issues. And I'm really hoping coming July 1 that a lot of those issues get resolved. But I think it's imperative that we stay very closely on top of that to do whatever we can to ensure that that improves, because a lot of folks trying to get to work are having trouble doing so because the bus routes are getting canceled because of driver issues. So I think that's important. I, like many of my other commissioners, are very interested in getting some bus service out into the outer lying areas, the Somersets in particular. I think microtransit could potentially be that solution in partnership with the various stakeholders in the different neighborhoods to maybe make that happen sooner rather than later. And I think they're ready to have those discussions. I'll give Boomtown as an example, as a potential hub out in the Somerset area where maybe people could meet there, and maybe Boomtown would be a partner to help fund some of those things to get microtransit into those neighborhoods. And I hope we can get that going. I think as we continue with the Virginia Street project, I think we need to be looking about when it's done, what the ultimate goal is to improve transit in the corridor, and not just transit for those that currently ride that bus, but for what are the possibilities for transit on that corridor once we're finished. And certainly something, and Director Gibson knows where I'm heading with this, is this is a tourist street. This is our most iconic street, and we have a lot of folks that would love a tourist-type ride from the university to downtown to Park Lane to the convention center, and maybe even all the way out to the Summit Mall. And this is where I think having the conversations with RCVA and the university and various stakeholders on a double-decker, open-top bus could not only help with transit, but helps on it's an experience. It's not just a route, it's an experience. And I think we need to maximize on some of those potential opportunities. So I am going to keep pushing the double-decker bus while we're in construction on Virginia Street. I think there's great opportunities there. And then the property disposal. Now that we are able through recent legislation, thank you, Governor Sisolak, for signing that bill and for all the legislators that worked on it, bringing that back as soon as possible on the remnant parcels that we can now dispose of and use for potential community affordable housing projects, and bringing that back as soon as possible. I know our attorneys are working on that program right now, and keeping it as simple as possible so that we don't try to control, but rather turn over those properties to those entities that can do the most expedited projects, because the affordable housing issue is our #1 issue in our region. So however we can help solve that or reduce the issues is certainly a priority of mine. And that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Delgado, did you have something? I know, Mr. Mayor, you had another thing you wanted to add?
We may have solved, yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. We may have solved our DaVita issue because they're opening up a new DaVita. It's built, I don't know why they haven't opened it yet, on Vista and Prater. Brand new facility, which is within the ADA.
Are they closing it? Are they closing the other one?
No, they're not closing the other one, as far as I know.
Okay.
But still, it would be within the ADA area. And I have a question on your comment. We never did say that we were just going to make those affordable housing.
No.
It's for businesses or whoever wants to go in there.
As I understand it, it was for public purpose. I don't know, maybe, I knew affordable housing was one of the
As
possibilities.
long as it's one of the possibilities, then we don't limit it. That's my only concern.
It could be others, as I understand.
The fundamental crux is it allows us to dispose of properties in accordance with all of the eminent domain stuff out there, but allow, if it's another public agency, put it to another public purpose. So if...
And I'm good with that. I just didn't want to limit, it sounded to me like you were
So,
limiting it to affordable housing projects.
I'll give you two examples.
Which take 10 years to build anyway.
We could dispose of a piece of property to the RSCVA. They will use it for a public purpose related to RSCVA, or it might be to the Reno Housing Authority. It might be to the city of Reno. It could be to the city of Sparks. It just,
Just creates a new
whatever the
flexibility
public
for us.
purpose of the entity receiving the property.
That was my only point.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it was open to everything.
Yeah, it creates flexibility for
Thank
us to do so. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Amy, I forgot one thing, and as we're, potentially re-examining transit, and this is a longer-term goal, and I know Mr. Jickling and I have talked about this, but I'd really like to look at the possibility of flexible routes, because we may be able to serve a certain subset with flexible routes. I mentioned to you the seniors. They're not commuter. They would be at a completely different time than the seniors in Spanish Springs. And I know that there are other seniors in Sparks that we deal with fairly regularly. They're not trying to get to their senior centers or their doctor's appointments during commuter times. And so potentially there's some ways that we might be able to serve that subset of the population with flexing some of the routes where we have very low ridership during midday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Amy, the only things that I would have to add, as my fellow commissioners and colleagues have pointed out, obviously there's a lot that we want to focus on as it pertains to multimodal transit here in the region. But my discussion is more about how we continue to focus on our RTPs going forward in more of that regional road design as it pertains to larger conduits between now what I'd like to call little microcosms of our region, obviously Spanish Springs, Silver Springs, South Valleys, where we're going to see growth in business and residential, how, we've obviously opened the Southeast Connector, but how do we continue to evolve as a region into the next 20, 30 years, and how do those conduits continue to evolve? Whether it's mass transit through the East Truckee River Canyon, whether it's roads up and over through Story County or through the northern alignments through Sparks out to the Tri-Center, or connecting Spanish Springs and Sparks through to I-580 up north. Those are the things that we want to continue to look at and how we are impacting as a design agency. I believe that that's one of our focuses and needs to continue to be the forefront. And I will continue to say this, is that transportation is always where development comes from and growth comes from. Without roads and the ability to get somewhere, there will be no design and there will be no growth. So I think that's really important for us going forward, that we continue to focus on that. The one other thing that I did want to point out as it points to with the addition of Keolis, understanding hopefully there are no hiccups with the Keolis and the onboarding of their agency. However, what I would like to see in the goals going forward is potential backup plans for any delays or cancellations. I mean, we've been having to jump on last minute to make those adjustments if routes were canceled or different like that, to help with our customers and make sure they can get to where they're going. Well, I know we've talked a number of times of doing taxi bucks and different things, but I'd like to have more of a concrete backup plan as it pertains if we know there's going to be a cancellation, if we know there's going to be challenges, whether it's inclement weather or whatever it may be, that we have something in place for those individuals to get to and from, because getting them to and from work, school, whatever it may be, is important. And that is our primary focus at RTC and needs to be at the primary focus of what we do. And so we just cannot let cancellations happen. We cannot have those delays. We've got to be consistent. And so hopefully Keolis will make sure that is, we hit those marks, but if we don't, we have that backup plan in place. That would be my only ask. All right, anything further any commissioners have other than that? All right, at this time, if there aren't any other things, Ms. Cummings, you've got all the notes that we've added to that. I would be looking for a motion to accept the performance goals for, or to set forth the performance goals for the agency going forward.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We are on to item 6.3. Mr. Ferguson, is there anything legal we need to discuss?
I'd like to just give the commission a brief status update on
Oh, there you go.
the one remaining eminent domain proceeding from the Fourth and Prater project, which involves the Elmwood property, which is the, I believe, southeast corner of Fourth and Evans. That case will, if it doesn't settle, which I don't at the current moment anticipate it will, go to a jury trial on the issue of valuation, I believe the second week of July. And so maybe in July or August, I could have an attorney-client meeting to brief all of you on the verdict that we receive, as well as the status of some of the other ongoing litigation that involves the RTC.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. All right, seeing no other legal issues, we're going to move on to item 7, public comment. This is our final public comment for the day. Is there anybody, I do not have any cards signed in, anybody wishing to speak at this time? Going once, twice, 3 times sold. Okay, we are back to the board. Final member items. Are there any member items? Mr. Ron Smith.
I have 2 items. Lee, there's some questions on the pyramid, the Nelson Way, the project we did right there. The RTC still owns the outside wall on Pyramid. Is there a reason why we still own that, or it hasn't been turned over to NDOT? Does anybody know?
Cole, do you know?
Usually it's if there's any issues, we don't turn it over, but when we checked, they said that RTC still owns it.
I don't know, we'll go look into that.
Yeah, just so we can clear that up. Also, you know, I should know this, but did we ever do anything for Debbie Smith out there? We were supposed to have a memorial.
Michael? I thought we had something in the...
Michael Marino, Public Affairs Manager. I'll check with the project manager to see where we are on the status of putting some kind of a marker out
I don't know if it was a plaque
there.
or whatever it was, but we should
Yeah.
do something because we promised to do something.
I thought we had something we were putting in the ground.
We had some kind of a marker, a
Yeah.
boulder or something, so we'll
Yeah,
we'll
that's
check
what
on that.
I haven't seen it, and maybe it's there, I don't know.
I'll check with Scott.
Okay, thank you. That's
Any
it.
other, thank you, Manager Smith. Any other items? Commissioner Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibson, at some point, and maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, it'd be nice if we had just a study to look at widening 7th Street across O'Brien Pass that goes to the backside of Golden Valley. I think it's a huge amount of traffic. We've got some new subdivisions up there. And it would be nice to just look at that, because I know it's used as a regular thoroughfare by the school district and of course, many commuters trying to reach 395 via Golden Valley. And then, Mr. Moreno, I know I sent you an email from some folks. I'm trying to pull it up here quickly. Let's see here. It was from, ultimately, and I know other commissioners got this, from the Executive Director of Nevada Youth Empowerment Project. Did you respond to them?
Actually,
about-
Mr. Gibson has been corresponding with Ms. Dupay.
Okay, good.
As well as we've been working, our customer service manager at 4th Street Station, Joel, has been working
Well
with
done.
her.
Okay, and then we got another one from Ms. Olson on some access issues because she's a disabled vet.
I don't believe I've seen that.
Okay, well, you know what, I will forward it to you and just make sure that you have it. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair, do you have anything? Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Remember, this week is, Mr. Moreno. Yes, sir.
If you'll permit me, I think I was remiss in putting one announcement on Mr. Gibson's director's report.
Sure.
So for the benefit of the public, I'd like to share the information. The RTC is hosting a public meeting on June 27th for the UNR Multimodal Transportation Study at the Evelyn Mount Community Center in Northeast Reno. The meeting will begin at 5:30, goes until 7. And this the outreach for the study is seeking input from students, faculty, campus visitors, and area residents about issues pertaining to transportation, concerns they have within the study area, and what improvements they would like to see.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Moreno. All right, well, and like I said, I'd like to point out, obviously, it is rodeo week. Every rodeo starts today, and we do urge everybody to get out and enjoy the public events here in Washoe County, but we also urge you at the same time to be safe and take public transit. We do have bus routes that come here by the facilities, so come utilize our downtown station, take our buses, come down here, park your cars, enjoy some dinner in downtown, and get out. We also want to remind everybody to show up next Friday, which would be June 28th from 11 to 12 for the celebration of the transformation of Virginia Street, the Bus Rapid Transit. That will be at 11 a.m. downtown. Remember, please frequent our downtown, midtown businesses. They are still open during construction. We urge you to get out. They want you to come and visit. And so please participate and visit those businesses. And without that, seeing nothing further, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.